Alright, hey guys, this is Yoda. This will be my guide to Ara-Kara. I know it's very late in the season, but the ring is coming out soon, and we will be potentially seeing some more people push keys, so hopefully this guide helps some people. So, we start the key with Pre-Holy Bulwark. Also, you note I'm just like sitting here to keep my egg at 30 stacks. And I also have Potion of Shocking Disclosure running. This is a potion that you could get a Dragonflight, you can buy them off the auction house, just to get a little bit of aggro while I'm mounted running down. So we do want to mount all the way down, pretty much every group. Let me turn the resolution up a bit. Okay, pretty much every group is just going straight to the mini-boss here. I dismount at this point because I want to get Shield of the Righteous up before I get to these crawlers. So I'm Blessed Hammer 3 times. I sack the priest because we decided it's better if I sack the priest on pull, and I think I should be bopping the shaman here as well. We're not really too focused on tagging every single mob here, we just want to get past without dying. Hopefully they shouldn't die to aggro. I do drop a consecrate on the way just in case, but yeah. So we're tagging every pack here. Note that I'm not actually tagging this attendant, and that's because we have a DK in the group, he can just grip it. And if I throw my shield over there, it's going to bounce to the patrolling attendant, and we actually don't want the patrolling attendant in our route. So I taunt the boss. And also, this boss, first global, as soon as you taunt it, will start casting Web Bolt. So I pull with Taunt Boss into, or Face Aggro Boss if you don't want to taunt it, into Divine Toll, and Divine Toll should catch the first Web Bolt. Also on the way down, note that we committed Ardent and Lay on Hands. This gather is very spooky on pull. Lay on Hands is a really nice way to just make sure you don't die on the way in. In this pull, we have one tailoring item. We're stunning Ixin with it, and I'm just soloing the attendant from there. These attendants, by the way, have a really, really fast cast for some reason. So sometimes you can't solo it even with resonance, depending on like how the casts line up. It's a weird way of saying it, but yeah, sometimes you need to even kick during resonance. During this pull, we have PI Lust, or no Lust, but we have PI and Ascendance running with Ancestral Guidance, so I shouldn't need to commit Bubble, which is why I don't use it. Bubble is super useful in this first area for other reasons. It's mostly when these crawlers start blowing up. They like do a circle and they do Toxic Rupture. If you want to stand still with it, sometimes it's very important to stand still. Then Bubble's useful for that. Alright, so after we kill these, remember we're skipping the patrol, so we go to the right here. And the next area has basically a bunch of engorged crawlers, which are going to spit at random people, and they also melee really hard for some reason. One Trilling Attendant, which you need to rotate kicks on, which, you know, you're a paladin, so you can kind of just solo it a lot of the time. And a bunch of these crawlers, like Ravenous Crawlers, Engorged Crawlers. So Ravenous Crawlers just jump on people and don't do that much damage. The Jabbing Flyers are going to apply a bleed to you that is somewhat noticeable, but not crazy. The main source of damage in this pull is the Engorged Crawler's Venomous Spit. As a Prot Paladin, you want to be dispelling yourself whenever you get it, or you could just have like a dispel rotation in the group. Our group has only one other dispel, which is the Evoker, but there are certain other tools you can play with. So we have Sack, which will immune someone from the poison. It will not only dispel them, if they get targeted with a new one while they have Sack, they also get immune. You also have Cauterizing Flame, and you also have Poison Cleansing Totem plus Totem Recall into another Poison Cleansing Totem for the Shaman. As for tools for yourself, you also have like your personal cooldowns. This pack actually does a lot of melee damage and some bleed damage, so if you are sitting a poison, it's pretty much going to cost you like either your life or a full mana bar or an external or something. Usually we kind of just let it sit if it's on the DK, and then if it's not on the DK, then me and the Evoker are rotating dispels. If we start falling behind, then we have Sack, and we have Bubble, and we have Poison Cleansing Totem. One strategy our group uses is on the Poison Cleansing Totem, the Evoker is basically not needed to dispel while the totem is down. So we can go take a tailoring item and come back, which we'll be using on the next mini-boss. Also, there's a lot of free count around in this area that you can tag. Basically, every mob that is not a Trilling Attendant is considered free count. Mainly because no matter how many Engorged Crawlers you pull, they can only cast one Venomous Spit at a time. They won't sync up and all spit one person or whatever. So if you pull 8 Engorged Crawlers, they're going to be casting Venomous Spit at the same rate as if you pull 6. So pretty much all the mobs here, every mob that you pull is basically just only doing more damage to you. So it's basically considered free count because, you know, fuck tanks. At least that's how most people think. Anyway, that's how routes are made. So we pull a bunch of Engorged Crawlers. They kind of hit me a little bit hard, but as long as you're rotating your cooldowns, your healers are not DC'd, and you know you kite a little bit, you should be okay. Do be a little bit careful, like while you're pulling, if you have no cooldowns, it can be very scary. So just be a little bit careful and make sure we're on top of the dispels. When these start dying, obviously they cast Toxic Rupture, so you have to walk away. Alright, so as these die, we're going to be going into the mini-boss. So this mini boss, if you have tailoring and if you don't have tailoring, is drastically different. Also, of course, make sure you kick. It's vitally important that these bolts don't hit anyone. So the way our group does it, we do one interrupt and then we stun with a pressing roar. So the pressing roar makes the stun longer. We pop cooldowns, and that's basically causing this AoE to not go on cooldown until the stun is over. So that should guarantee we only get one AoE. There's another way to do it where you just like let the first AoE get one tick and then you stun it. However, in my opinion, that requires extreme precision from a pre-casted stun, and if your person fails, then it's just like a wipe half the time. So we've just been casting it before he even gets the AoE off. Then everyone knows as soon as this stun is over, he's going to do the AoE, and we're just ready for it. And he should only get one AoE off. As you see, we have like all our cooldowns ready, so all our offensive cooldowns rather. So he's like very, very low coming out the stun. So he gets this one AoE, and then he'll die before the next one. So that's our strategy for this. By the way, this web spray works in the weirdest possible way. So the web spray itself is survivable. It's like just this frontal cone where obviously the graphic is bugged because the game is still in beta. But it also spawns a bunch of these swirlies. So these swirlies actually land after the web spray. As you'll see, the web spray resolves and the swirlies are still on the ground. I don't know if this is a bug or whatever, but you know, the game has been out for months and it's still in the game, so it's probably not getting fixed if it's a bug. Also, if you get hit by this swirly, it does not matter what cooldown you have, even bubble, you will die and your death log will be empty. That is a bug in Ara-Kara. If you get hit by this swirly, you die no matter what, and there's no death log. It's a bug. The game's been out for 6 months. They still haven't fixed it. Whatever. That's just how it works. Also, do note that the swirlies land after the web spray. So a habit people have is like the web spray ends and it'll walk into where it was. You cannot do that. The swirlies will still kill you. Alright, so next we're going on to the poison guy. This pull will feature one attendant, which you're solo kicking, probably as the Paladin. If you have allies, you know, they can help kick it. I also pull these crawlers in. This boss's poison bolt only hits the tank, and I'm pretty sure it doesn't scale with Mythic 0, with Mythic Plus or something, because the dot basically does piss all compared to the Engorged Crawler's dot. So you can basically just let this dot sit on yourself the whole time. It almost does no damage. You can see my health is barely moving, even though I sit the full dot, and we don't even think about dispelling it. However, the dot from the Engorged Crawlers is very dangerous. In this pull, also, you need to be very careful of the Poisonous Cloud. When it lands, it does insane damage. It can one-shot you, and also it just walks around and, you know, it's a cloud, so you can't stay in it. Our Evoker is also pulling some grabbing flyers from further away. He basically spatials and just tags the ones furthest on the left for some free count. This mob also has the web spray mechanic. So in this pull, honestly, you just need to make sure no one stands in anything, and also you don't die to web bolt plus the poison from the 2 Engorged Crawlers. Again, the Attic poison bolt is basically just free. It doesn't scale with Mythic 0. The game's been out for 6 months. We've already run to 4 bugs, but that's how it is. Alright, so we finished off the pack, and now we're going to the boss. So I do take a little mounted route around here to pick up even more extra flyers here. These 3 jabbing flyers are not linked to anything. You can pick them up. There's 3 more jabbing flyers over here that we pick up. Then there's 1 more over there, so we're just picking up a bunch of jabbing flyers. By the way, if you have this many flyers going to the boss does do a tank buster instantly on pull, so it's kind of scary. Make sure you have a cooldown. I actually noticed that I don't have a cooldown here, so I'm pretty sure I'd be ready to... I asked for PS, actually, is what happens. But I also do have finger on lay on hands here. So, speaking of this boss, for tanks, he does basically 2 bites every cycle. It's bite into alarm shrill into bite. So the bite itself isn't actually that scary as long as you like aren't disconnected from the game, you're at your keyboard and you have a Word of Glory ready. The bite itself probably won't kill you, but it applies a pretty big physical debuff, physical damage taken debuff, and Alarm Shrill does physical damage, plus the boss does a melee during Alarm Shrill, because, you know, why wouldn't the boss be able to melee while it's casting? So the main thing you need to be cooldowning is Alarm Shrill. That's where you put your major cooldowns. For Voracious Bite, you can use minor cooldowns, but don't commit anything major to just the bite. You want to commit major cooldowns to the Alarm Shrill. So here, I do take PS on pull because I have absolutely nothing. For this Alarm Shrill, I think my cooldown plan was Ardent into Finger on Lay on Hands. We also have Lust, PI, and AG. Or, we don't have AG, but we have Lust and PI, so I'm getting healed a lot by the healer as well during this time. So I figure I'm probably okay, don't need to bubble. I think he does Voracious Bite. Notice I'm not really using any cooldowns because Bite can't kill you. Just, you know, don't disconnect, don't forget to heal yourself, and you'll be fine. Also, one tactic I want to go over, we'll go back to where the ads spawn. So you notice how the boss is extremely close to these eggs? This is actually further than he could be. He could be even closer. As long as the person that the spider is fixated on is outside the boss's hitbox. So you see how I've targeted the boss and there's a little red thing here. This is the hitbox. As long as whoever is fixated is standing outside this hitbox, and also they're between the boss and the ad, obviously, then the boss will not eat the ad. The boss can literally be like almost in melee range of the ad and it won't eat it as long as the fixated target is outside of this circle. I think if you do like some knocks or something, you could mess with that. So don't mess with it too much, but you can be even closer than we are right now to the ads. It's really useful for like your Avenger Shield bounce, Chain Lightning from the Shaman, whatever other cleave other classes have, etc. Next it is Gossamer Onslaught. General strategy for this is just walk the boss to the outside beforehand as long as you don't run over any ads. And just walk in a circle. You can go kind of slow to drop these like decently well. These are like an average drop. I wouldn't say it was super good or super bad. As soon as the next egg spawn, I am heading over so that we can tank the boss in a proper position. Note that when he does the bite, I'm not committing any cooldowns. Then he does the alarm shrill, and I bubble. You can technically bubble the first bite of every cycle if you want, because then your debuff will fall off of the alarm shrill, so it won't hurt that much. But I prefer bubbling the alarm shrill, because you can also sack in your bubble. One other danger point in this fight is, see how these ads are kind of still alive and meleeing my group, so we're kind of low. So if your group is low, going to Gossamer Onslaught, Disc Priest in particular is not great at healing this, because they have to like move basically the whole time. So this is a good time to watch out for your allies with sack or lay on hands. Alright, as soon as the Onslaught is over, we're running over to the next eggs. I think this will probably be Bop, but I don't really remember. It can be Bop or Guardian. Those are both major cooldowns and either one works. Okay, so I can make Guardian, not Bop. We're next to the ads. People kill the ads, and then he does Gossamer Onslaught, and we walk away again. Guess bubbles back, so I guess I never actually needed to bop. By the way, once the boss is low enough, we decide to commit. For our group, it's like, we decide it's like 35 or lower, I think, on a real key level. Real key level being 19, of course. And we also have 2-minute cooldowns up. So the way we commit is the Shaman uses Root Totem. Then when he's unable to use Root Totem anymore, the Evoker just uses Landslide, and then it's like another Root Totem, and then we got some knocks. So as long as the boss dies before we run out of space, it's good. It's all good. Okay, so this is going to be a bop, example of the bop. So this is like the last alert shrill of the fight. So he bites me, I don't use anything. Then he's casting alert shrill. This is like before the channel has started, I'm bopping myself. And then I taunt him after bopping myself. Now remember, he does one melee during alert shrill. Boom, this is the melee. As soon as I see that melee and my taunt debuff is about to fall off, I cancel over the bop. Bang. Completely immune the alert shrill, and none of my allies got meleeed, so that's how it's done. Alright, so we finish this boss, and we start walking to the next pull. If you're low on mana, this boss does drain your mana a bit. This is a decently okay time to drink, but obviously you don't really want to drink too much because it's slowing down the key. So these two Bloodstain Assistants we decide to skip. In my opinion, Bloodstain Assistants are kind of bad count because they do a lot of tank damage and they also heal, which means their HP is like kind of deceptive. They actually have more health than they have depending on how many cooldowns you have when they're up. So we decide to skip those and we go to the Web Mage and up to the Blood Guard. I would say any pull that has the Blood Guard in it is probably fine in this area. I've seen it a lot of different routes. So we go up to the Blood Guard. We also grip in the Stag Shell. In this pull, if the assistants aren't in, there's really not much for you to do other than solo kick the Web Mage, so I'm doing that. I am also looking to pull in this mob, I think. This assistant. In this pull, you're basically limited by... you can't have too many of one thing. You want like one mage, or up to 2 if you have cooldowns, up to 2 assistants, and 1 Blood Guard, and 1 Alarm Shrill at most. You don't want to pull too many. Also, I've seen some people going right. Going right is freaking terrible. Never go right. Always go left. That's because the left side has way less assistants, way less casters, and it also has 1 less Blood Guard. And the count in this area is not great. The main thing is that there's 1 less Blood Guard, to be honest. The Blood Guard makes everything take longer because he gives an aura that makes everything around him take 50% less damage. So So I do tag in the assistant here once the patrol leaves. Generally, you want to be in combat with like one of each mob, right? One mage, one blood guard, one assistant. Alright, so as long as we're soloing kicks on the web mage, remember the casts on this web mage are really fast. Also, do note this revolting volley cast. My group is like somehow unaware of this, but revolting volley it doesn't scale with Mythic Plus. Another bug, you know, game has been out for 6 months. You don't need to kick it. Also, interrupting it is a complete troll actually, because you want to use an AoE stop on it, because it's actually a really long cast. So it'll recast it, and basically you can keep it casting that instead of the dangerous spell Web Bolt by using AoE stops. You don't want to use interrupts on Revolting Volley. You want to interrupt the Web Bolt because the Revolting Volley basically just doesn't do anything. It's a 3-second cast, and when it resolves, it basically just says do nothing. So the Volley cast is not very important. It's the Web Bolt that you want to interrupt. Once the Blood Guard has died, we can start looking to chain to the next Blood Guard. Again, since there's like no web mages or alarm shrillers in, we kind of go up to the next pull. If you have a DK, it makes this area super nice because they can grip this stag shell, which makes it so you can fight wherever you want. By the way, if this alarm shrill ever goes off, it's almost guaranteed a wipe because it's very likely that you're going to be fighting a blood guard while pretty much for your whole stay in this area. And if this alarm shrill goes off, it spawns a blood guard, and it also aggroes like everything within 100 yards or something. So make sure there's someone in your group that's responsible for stopping this. Generally, it's the evoker, but Shaman can also do most of the stops. DK can solo it almost, or probably just solo it, period. Paladin tank, however, is not good at soloing it, so ideally it's someone else in your group if you're playing tank. Alright, so we kill it, and then we move on to the next pull. So this pull has no blood guard, so we're okay pulling a bit bigger. Basically this 3-pack plus the 2-pack patrol. Once you start doing pulls with multiple assistants, by the way, this pull has 3 web mages and 2 assistants. You need to start worrying about overlapped extraction strike. This spell is not blockable, but it is parryable. If you parry, it also won't heal, so basically what it does is it heals them, and they also get stacks. You can see I'm kind of tracking it here. It has 2 stacks of this buff, which is falling off in 3 seconds. Every stack of that is 10% more increased damage and healing. So if they have high stacks, they're going to be hurting you more, and they're going to be healing you more. They're going to be healing themselves more, sorry. So in order to stop them from getting stacks, you have 3 methods. Number 1, you can just get lucky and parry. You have like, 50-ish, depending on your crit, parry when you have Avengers Shield buffs up. Number 2, you can bubble. If you bubble and they cast it on you, then it just fizzles. They don't refresh their stacks, so the stacks drop basically. They also don't heal, and they don't do any damage. The other way is to use stops on them, like Hodge, Blind, or your group stops, like Thunderstorm or whatever, to interrupt them until this Extraction Strike lands and the debuff has already fallen off. You can try calling for this. I usually don't call for it. I'll look for it. Like if I'm playing a non-tank spec, I will look to give them resets when possible. But generally as a tank, you basically make sure you want to have a cooldown if they have high stacks. And once they have high stacks, if you have bubble available, you can always reset by casting bubble, which I do now. Bubble being Divine Shield, of course. Also for an interrupt scheme, usually it's like you, the Paladin, on one web mage, and your whole group kicking the other web mage. Okay, so we are skipping this pack in this video. However, I have been pulling this pack instead of a pull later in the dungeon, and I actually like this count way more now. It is a bit dangerous. It's triple assistant, so you do need to have some defensive cooldowns available / damage cooldowns. Otherwise, this pack gets really scary. But I have started playing that a bit more if you have cooldowns available, if you've been watching the stream recently. All right, so we get to this pull, double alarm shrill, and some blood workers. These alarm shrills, as a Prot Paladin, you can't really do anything against them, so it's up to your group really. And you can't really skip this pack either. There is one web mage. If you never knock him or disorient, then the web mage, I believe, will just keep channeling on the wall, but it's not super important. I think I'm checking MDT here because we're missed count somewhere, unfortunately. One other trick here, after the web mage dies, your healer with spatial can tag the boss, and the boss will snap you in. I think we weren't doing that technology yet here. Decided it was like too hard or something, so here instead, we're just going to mount and rescue in. So he mounts, kicks off the merchants, and Evoker rescues him in. One trick here also, the DK is tagging the boss with AMS up. The boss's first global, every single time you pull this, is going to be casting Infest on whoever pulled it. And our DK, if our DK pulls with AMS, then he's basically immuning the Infest. If you pull as the tank, it's fine, just like Bubble or Ardent Thun pull. So for this boss, Impale is a frontal. It's aimed at you. It's not super important where it is because people can just dodge, and most people are playing in melee. You do need to watch out for this Infestation debuff. It does a lot of damage, even to the tank. Every time it's on you, you can push Ardent. If you don't have Ardent, you can Bubble. If you want, you can also just Bubble instead of Ardenting. And then just Ardent the next one. Either way. You do want to end this fight with pretty good cooldowns up, though, because the rest of the area hurts tanks like crazy. These web mages, you want to be farming interrupts off of for punishment talent, with punishment talent to get free Blessed Hammer, free Holy Power. Don't let any kicks go off, though, because then your party gets rooted and they can die. So in this Eye of the Storm, we want to be on the right side, and that's because if you notice, I'm not moving the boss. If you do not move the boss at all, then the Eye of the Storm is naturally going to be moving left. If you move the boss, then the Eye of the Storm will follow you, but if you don't move the boss, which most people don't want you to move, because then this circle is going to change, and your caster is going to be like, well, I'm casting, so you don't want to move the circle too much. If you stand still, you want to stand on the right side so the Impale goes to the right, and the circle is moving to the left, so your group is naturally going to be dodging the frontal. Also worth noting, by the way, some people don't know where these circles, these clouds come from. Whenever your Infestation debuff falls, that's when the circle is spawned. And then I haven't found any hard and fast rule for how they move. It seems like they heat sink players sometimes, and sometimes they ignore them, so I don't really know how it works. One other thing, you will notice I have a weak aura down here. If Infest targets you, then you are now on cooldown for 45 seconds, and you cannot get it again. But you can get it up to once every 45 seconds. So you can plan your defenses around that. So for instance, for Shaman, right, you have Astral Shift, which is 1 minute 30. You can Astral Shift every other, and then for the other ones that you get, you can either use like Stoneborg Totem or Earth Ellie, or you can ask for External. For us, we just have like the Shaman rotating his wall and my sack, and then the Priest is just rotating DP and then PS on himself, and the Evoker is just figuring it out, I guess. For this charge, by the way, if everyone is in melee except one person, then it'll almost always pick that person, so it targets the Evoker here. You'll see that, and then the Evoker is going to sidestep it, I believe. I think he's hovering it. You can, I believe if you're moving fast enough, you can sidestep it, but he just hovers it and doesn't get hit. If you're going to get hit by this charge, by the way, you want to get hit as close as possible, because the boss will charge and he does 2 hits. One is when he charges through you, and the other one is when he knocks up at the end of the charge. Neither one is lethal, I think. Well, the charge through you is not lethal by itself, but the knock up is lethal, especially if you like combine it with the charge. So if you are ever actually going to get hit by this boss and you're unable to dodge it, then you want to not get hit by the end of the charge, so you want to dodge toward the boss. Alright, so that's this boss. We finish it off. As a tank, there's not too much. Just make sure you cool down every infest and face the impales to the right, and don't move the boss too much. That's pretty much it. We do need to also worry about getting aggro on these ads I didn't mention. So you'll notice every time he does burrow charge, an ad is spawning immediately after. So basically, as soon that's your cue to be like ready to get aggro. So boss is casting burrow charge, and I'm like, ooh, boss casting burrow charge. That means I need to be looking out for an ad. Bam, ad spawns right as he's casting it. Tab taunt it. So that's this area. Next we go here. So this area is actually very spooky, especially for the tank, but for the group as well because of the winged carriers. We pull, this is my pull. I do Blood Overseer plus some drones. And then there's going to be winged carriers flying in. So the Blood Overseer actually does decent melee damage. All the mobs in here actually do quite high melee damage. And there's one wombo combo you need to be worried about. So Grasping Slash applies a 30% slow and it stacks up to 3 times. So if you have 3 stacks, you're slowed by 90%. And then this Blood Overseer also casts Erupting Webs, which is the swirlies on the ground. If you get hit by that, then it's a stun. In a pull like this, you're basically dead if you get stunned as a tank. So as a Paladin, to counteract that, you want to be using Freedom and Bubble. You also have tools to call for, which are Jetstream, which is a Windrush talent for Enhanced Shaman. They can usually cast it twice. They cast it once, and they can recall totem, and they can do it again. And the priest can also grip, which is not that reliable. Evoker can also rescue. So you basically have to call for help when you're out of stuff. But you can like freedom the first one, and then bubble the next time you're in trouble, then freedom again. After here, there was some aggro issues on pull, and our priest just died. Kind of sucks. My pull is like has a lot of mobs from around the world, so it's kind of hard to tag everything on the way in. Yeah, here you can see it's casting Erupting Web, and I'm about to get Grasping Slash 3 times, so I should be freedoming here. Okay, I bubble. Actually, I think I bubbled because these winged carriers are coming in, and aggro on these winged carriers has been a problem recently. So I bubble for aggro. This actually is kind of bad for the freedom situation, but we'll see why later. So we bubble for aggro, and then I also commit Divine Toll. And I'm pretty sure I bought my Shaman here too, so I freed him here. At this point, I'm like out of saves for myself, so I need to ask for help next time he casts Erupting Web if I'm slowed. Also, by the way, I committed Bubble, Bop, and Divine Toll for aggro. My Enhanced Shaman is still pulling threat. We got above tanks, please Blizzard. You can also kite this pull if you're really scared, which happens a lot. I don't know how this pull went so crazily bad. I think it's because the Shaman pulled aggro and then stuff is just alive because he wasn't able to kill it. Yeah, don't be afraid to kite. Generally, it's considered normal to play like 1 Overseer plus some drones plus flyers. You usually don't want to play flyers plus 2 Overseers because it's considered like too scary. You have to dodge too much and there's a lot of damage coming out. Plus, you don't actually need to because you can't reduce the number of pulls. I think pretty much everyone's playing 3 pulls in this area. My recent route has started doing like 1.5 pulls in the area by playing more earlier. But that's like doing some crazy skips that we're not going to go over in this video. So these winged carriers are extremely dangerous, by the way. They can jump on a random person, and there's no coding, I think, that prevents them from all jumping on the same person. So 3 of them can pick 1 person, and if they don't have a DR, it's just a one-shot, so you got to be careful about that. Usually it's considered a good idea to just like focus them down because they don't have much health, right? If you look, this winged carrier has basically less than half the health of the Blood Overseer. So they're like dangerous mobs with low health, so you want to be focusing them down. And again, as a tank, if you get slowed, you want to be doing freedom first priority, bubble second priority. Then you can, if you do like freedom into bubble into freedom, then you should have something for the next one. Here I called rescue. You'll have nothing rather for the next one. You need to ask for something. Here I called for rescue. So we finish off this. We go to the next pull, which is just double Overseer with a bunch of drones. So since we've taken care of all the carriers, I'm okay pulling double Overseer here. This pull is very scary for the tank. Make sure you have a cooldown running at all times. If you don't have a cooldown running, you need to be kiting or asking for help, like PS. So here, I think we go Ardent Guardian and then PS. Then I bubble. So you kind of want to line your bubble up with the second Erupting Web. So you want to use bubble to dual purpose, right? You want to use it as a defensive cooldown, and you also want to use it to immune the Grasping Slash plus Erupting Webs combo. So we'll watch this again. We are front-loading cooldowns when we go in. So we go Ardent into Guardian. Honestly, I could probably get away without using a cooldown for a bit because we have PI and cooldowns. Actually, we don't have PI and cooldowns, so it's a good thing I use stuff. If you have PI and cooldowns running, you can kind of get away with not having a cooldown for some part of this, but it is super scary. So we go Ardent into Guardian, into bubble this second webs. After second webs, I will probably be kiting. If I had to guess, probably tier and then kite, if I had to guess. So yes, I have tier, and then we have no cooldowns left, so we are running a bit. So we do have Ardent up, but I don't, it's like my last cooldown, right? So once you start getting low on cooldowns, you want to kite them, still kite them, and then when you get to the end of the hallway, I'm going to use Ardent so I can actually walk through. And then keep kiting. You just like kite here, and then pop cooldown, then you kite here, then you pop cooldown, etc. You want to like roll cooldowns on pull, so it's all stacked when everyone has damage running. But once damage falls off, if the mobs are still alive, then like, you know, you can't tank it with no cooldown. So here I'm kiting a bunch, and I only use cooldowns so I can turn and run through the mobs, basically. All right, so that's this pull. Now we get to the boss. So this boss is actually really hard, in my opinion, on the tank, because usually your healer is going to be asking for your dispel. So here, basically, I'm dispelling the priest off cooldown. Priest in general is pretty bad at healing himself on this boss. but you have some outs to play with. So we are playing sack dispel. So every time you sack, it basically makes your it's a free dispel. You can either dispel yourself when you sack the priest, or you can sack the priest and then buy your dispel and just sit your debuff. One thing to note, if you sack before the debuff is applied, then the priest will still have these lines and the waves will be real, but they won't take any damage from the debuff. If you sack after, then it will dispel the debuff and the lines will immediately shoot. So watch out for that. Every time this debuff comes out, by the way, you want to make sure you have some sort of cooldown. Here I'm like in wings, so I'm kind of okay without a cooldown, but I should honestly be using Ardent. Basically, the idea is you don't really want to be sitting any debuffs with no cooldowns, so you want to rotate between like sack the healer and dispel yourself, or like dispel the healer and dwarf, or you have bubble. If you have none of that, then you can just use a normal cooldown, like Ardent or Guardian. But generally, you never want your healer to be forced to sit a debuff because it's actually really dangerous for them. This debuff hurts a lot, like it's hurting you a lot and you're playing tank. It's going to hurt your healer even more. As a paladin, you don't really have any outs, by the way, from the Cosmic Singularity. Like a warrior could just jump out at the last second, so can BDH. DK can just like Death Advance out. As a paladin, especially if you're using your bubble on the poisons, you have no outs for this, so make sure you're communicating beforehand where you're going. And it's probably a good idea to start running early too, because most of your damage can happen at range anyway, and you do want to make sure that this mechanic is done smoothly. So I would just run out super early, ping beforehand also where you're going, and make sure you interrupt the Grasping Blood so you don't get rooted during the stun. One other trick you can do, by the way, is if there's a bunch of puddles where you want to be playing the boss, you can free them just to clear them. Obviously don't clear if he's about to do Cosmic Singularity, but right after Cosmic Singularity, if you notice that your area is cluttered like Ark's kind of is, then you can free them and just walk through the puddles if you want. And that is the boss. So that'll do it for the Ara-Kara guide. Thank you all for watching. Peace out.